Cyberpunk 2077 is a story about death, life, and what it means to be alive. Continuously, you are asked existential questions about existence, and there is no right or wrong answer. And that's the appeal of the sci-fi genre. It pushes the concept of humanity and what it means to be alive. To me, this is what makes cyberpunk and the genre itself so interesting, and especially the concept of death. Death is different here. Death is not the end. And while it's something that Night City is absolutely drenched in, it's also something that isn't as scary here as it is in real life. For some in Night City, death can be prolonged, avoided, and negated entirely. You can escape death, and you can live after dying. Whether it's the real you or whether you are still alive is up for debate. But whatever version of you exists, you still exist. And this is V's story. For V, death is just the beginning, not the end. When we meet V, they are on the cusp of greatness, settling into their merc life with Jackie and getting new, exciting jobs. But this doesn't last, and you quickly realize what a death-filled journey V is about to have. The story introduces you to death and themes around it immediately. On your very first job as V, you save a corpo from Night City. We meet Sandra Dorset on the brink of death, but luckily for her, she can afford to be saved, unlike so many in Night City. Sandra's near-death experience gives us a proper look into the world and how the elite will always be favored, especially in life and death. In that first mission, there are several people left to die, some even at the hands of V, but none of them matter. Even the person in the tub with Sandra is completely forgotten. Even you and Jackie don't matter. Sandra can pay for Trauma Team, and therefore she can afford to live. And knowing Trauma Team, they'd take you down to save their client. Her money makes her life more important than yours, and that is the core of how Night City works. The next job we do is the very opposite of this, and this brings V to their lowest they've ever been. Where Sandra's life was able to be saved, Jackie's death is inevitable. It is uncontrollable, and there is nothing that V can do to save him. V has to watch as the life drains from Jackie's eyes, as their best friend, their brother, dies right in front of them, and there's nothing that V can do. The beginning of V's story is cold and fills you with hopelessness, and shows you how alone you are in Night City, and that you can die in the back of some car and no one is coming to save you. With Sandra, there's a lack of connection. You don't care about this woman. You're just doing a job, which reflects the complacency found in Night City, and how V will approach most jobs in the future. It's just a job, and Sandra is just a client. Meanwhile, with Jackie, it's personal. You care about Jackie. The game gives you this entire introduction with him, showing how intertwined your lives are. How he took you in and you became part of his family, with Mama Wells and Misty. He's your best friend, your brother, your partner in crime. And he dies and there's nothing you can do about it. Trauma Team isn't coming for him, because in Night City, you and Jackie are no one. And even though this night, Jackie did die as a nobody, he did become someone. After this job, Night City saw Jackie as someone who went out in a blaze of glory. Jackie Wells and V killed Saburo Arasaka, and Jackie died doing the unthinkable. This is how Night City sees him. But that isn't the truth. The truth is that Jackie is someone who tried and failed, especially in his own eyes. Only V, Jackie, and Takamura know the truth of what happened that night. So even though Jackie unintentionally made a name for himself and did get a drink at the afterlife, did he earn it? Does it even matter if he earned it? If that's what people think? I don't know. But I do know that Jackie went out feeling like a failure. At the beginning of the mission, he even tells V that he doesn't want to return to his old life. This job is supposed to be the beginning of a new life for him and his loved ones. And he failed. And he failed them. So it really doesn't matter if Jackie became anyone to Night City in the end, because during his final moments, he knew that he failed. He wasn't getting anyone out of that life he didn't want. He couldn't help his family. He failed and he could never try again. And in this moment, becoming someone means nothing. Faced with certain death, all Jackie is thinking about is Misty and his regrets. Not his title and notoriety. He's thinking about those he loved. And all you can do is watch as your best friend lives his final moments in regret. Jackie represents everything that V was and could have been. That life with Jackie and Mama Wells, with V's best friend always by their side, is gone. And he died a merc who didn't amount to anything. Jackie never became someone while he lived to benefit from it. He never made enough money to help his family or got big enough jobs to make a difference. He died being just another failed merc in Night City, something that V very well could have become too. But while Jackie dies in that car that V has to leave behind, V has to face the fixer that doomed them. V alone has to face the failure of this job, and is killed for it. Betrayed by the fixer that Jackie worked so hard to set up. Betrayed by the man that was supposed to change Jackie and V's lives. Deshawn tosses V aside like garbage, and leaves V to rot. V is not worth his time. V is nobody. And in that landfill, as V is dying, left for dead, this is when V truly hits rock bottom. This sets the tone for the entire game. It's you versus the world. And everything in Cyberpunk is draped in death. But most of all, V. And you can't stop V from dying. There was no trauma team to save V like Sandra. It's just V, the landfill, and their failures. But this is just the beginning. This is where V's story begins. And this is where V's story with Johnny begins. By dumb luck, Johnny's engram kicks in after V's death, and V and Johnny are both reborn. Here we meet a man who has died and has been reborn in the form of his engram, and through Johnny we meet someone who has, in a way, come to terms with dying and being dead. He talks about his mistakes and things he'd change and do differently if he could. Our story with him is retreading the choices and mistakes he made in his life, and seeing how that led to his own death, and to the death of the people he even tried to save, bringing us to the story of Alt, the woman whose death he was responsible for, the woman he claimed to love. And you could argue the game's interpretation of this, but in the Cyberpunk Red books, Johnny is the one who unplugs Alt as she screams at him not to. He is ultimately the reason she became trapped in the net. Johnny killed the Alt he knew, the one he was trying to save. And even though the Alt that Johnny was trying to save dies, just like Johnny and V, her death is not the end of her story either. All three of these characters have a story after their death. Because in Cyberpunk, death doesn't mean the end. So while Johnny's story revolves around his death and the deaths that he caused, his story is also about how Johnny is trying desperately to hold onto any glimpse of life. He wants the Alt he knew to be alive. He wants to be able to pick up right where he left off with Rogue. He wants to be able to take down Arasaka and Atom Smasher and finally do the things he never got to do. And most of all, he wants V to survive. Yes, it's mostly for selfish reasons in the beginning of V and Johnny's journey, but if you befriend Johnny, there is a sincerity there. He truly does want V to survive, even if it means that he won't. Like V, Johnny is drenched in death, doomed to die again. With Johnny, you share that doom, that dread, that fear, and he can comfort you. He can share those feelings with you, or you can be assholes to each other and not connect through this shared mutual experience. But in that connection is where the comfort of the cyberpunk genre is found, for you are not alone in your suffering. And this extends beyond V and Johnny. It's a major part of the cyberpunk genre, suffering and finding connections within that suffering. You find gangs who have found each other to survive. You find people whose family connections are their most important traits. You even meet people who are trying to help you survive. Maybe that's what's so comforting about Cyberpunk, is that it feels like everything is doomed. V, Johnny, Night City, and everyone who lives there. Except maybe the Arasakas, everyone is being crushed under the weight of capitalism, corporations, and the military. Everyone has someone else profiting off of their suffering. They are being exploited, and everyone shares that experience. It's something that connects everyone in Night City. Night City is beating them down, and they're all just trying to survive. And while V is just trying to survive and their story revolves around trying to find a way to live, despite it all, V is also thriving. Even knowing V is going to die, V is still getting jobs, still making money, buying nice apartments, nice cars, and making a name for themselves. Even facing death, V is somehow doing something in Night City, becoming someone, even while being someone who is doomed to die. It's this feeling of notoriety, of progress and success, that makes V's journey feel impactful in Night City. Life still feels worth living. Despite everything, you have found love, fame, fortune. You're becoming what Jackie always wanted to be. And I think this is why Jackie is so tragic. He's just like V, trying to become someone in a city beating everyone down. But unlike V, he passes go but can't finish the race. He never truly becomes anyone like V did. There's a tragedy in that, but a comfort in knowing he died trying. Maybe it's that feeling that makes the cyberpunk world endearing, knowing everything is doomed. You know absolutely everything fucking sucks. But here you are, living as much as you can. I think there's a feeling that people can grasp there, that we don't feel maybe in the real world, suffering from the same weight of life as V and Jackie are. With V, even though their fate isn't in their hands, not truly, there's a semblance of control there. It feels like V's fate is being decided by V, even if the path to survival is really in the hands of others, like Reed or Alt or Songbird. V's journey feels like you choose to live, even with death around the corner. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. It feels human. Maybe all of this is why the cyberpunk genre is so fascinating, so relatable, and maybe so comforting. It's about survival. It's about trying despite everything. It's very human, and I think there's beauty in trying to survive. Maybe there's also a sense of freedom in knowing you're going to die, knowing that any day could be your last. Maybe that's why V feels like they can survive on the edge. No job is too dangerous. No fixer is asking too much. There is no risk too high. Nothing is off the table because there's a fatalism there. You feel the doom of V. V is going to die, and it feels like there's absolutely nothing that you can do about it, despite how hard you try. So drive that car at maximum speed. Get into as many fights as you can. Take the riskiest job possible. For V, there really isn't a threshold. They truly can risk it all to become someone. They can risk it all because that risk isn't really in their control anymore. If they die, if they fail, what does it matter when Johnny's engram is killing them anyways? Yet despite having that freedom of pushing yourself to the edge, of decking yourself out in chrome to push your body's limits, and continuously put yourself in danger to try to save yourself but to also make a name for yourself, you know that V wants to live. And I think that everyone can relate to that. But for me, V's journey became very personal. I was diagnosed with several rare illnesses in my teens and have spent my entire life in doctor's offices, in hospitals and labs, being tested on for over 20 years now. I've spent the majority of my life trying to get better, to feel better, and to be able to live a better life. I've spent so much time, money, energy, and effort to even just feel better. So when I played this story of a woman who was just trying to live, when I experienced my V finding comfort in Johnny, and when I had to make that choice how to end V's journey, I looked at it through my own lens. Because like V, I've always been chasing survival. Maybe it's because just like V, I too have an uncontrollable, rare, life-threatening illness that I also have spent my life searching for a way to cure. Maybe it's because like V, I've been turned away so many times because there's no right answer. There is no cure. Maybe it's because experiencing chronic illness especially with rare diseases, is so isolating, and Johnny is comforting in V's story. Maybe it's because V's story is so relatable to those of us worrying about death and surviving. Maybe it's because, like V, I'd do anything to live. And not just live, but thrive. It's hard to live in a body that doesn't match your mind. You want to do all of these things, and yet you can't. But in Cyberpunk, you can. You can change and upgrade and even replace your body. Something I'll never be able to do. So there's also a little bit of jealousy there and awe that I feel with V. V is both not in control of what's happening to their mind and body, while also being in control of those very same things. As V, you spend the game upgrading your body with whatever you want, and in the larger cyberpunk world, the possibilities are literally endless. Do you want to be a robot or a cheetah? Well, with cyberware, anything is possible. Break an arm, just go get a new one. Your heart's not beating right, just replace it. But that's not real, and I'll never get those choices. Being disabled, being chronically ill, I spend a lot of time dreaming about what if. What if I could do normal things? What if I had a normal body with no limits? Or what if I could have a different body? What if I could install a new heart that could get rid of so many of my symptoms? What if I could replace my cardiovascular system entirely so that I could run again? What if I could replace whatever needed replacing without having to worry about the impending effects of degradation and aging at an accelerated rate because of my health issues? Or dying quicker than everyone else? What if I could just never die like Alt or Saburo? What if I could clone my consciousness and upload it onto a clone of a body that actually works? What if death didn't have to happen? There's a fantasy behind V. V can be stronger, V can replace things that don't work. Hell, V could get an entire body mod if they wanted to. That's a fantasy. That's a fantasy many disabled people dream of. It's the what if. And it's freeing to play V. That even though they're dying and there's this thing V can't control, there's also this sense of immortality in the cyberpunk world, and that your body doesn't limit anything. In a world where soul killers exist, is anyone ever really dead if our bodies can be replaced? Do you have to worry about dying in this world where anything is possible when it comes to changing the body you live in? And not to mention that in this timeline, lifespans are longer. People live for at least 100 years now. And while everyone becomes disabled eventually through old age if you're lucky enough to get there, in Cyberpunk, you have a lot of life to live, if you can afford it. So even though V is dying and has little control over what is happening to their body, there's also a power fantasy there. To be in this world where upgrading your body, replacing parts, and preserving your mind is possible. Immortality is possible. Anything is possible. Unlike the real world. So while Cyberpunk is very much the American Dream 5.0, that it gives you this feeling that anything is possible, but in truth you know that it isn't, it still feels like for V, anything truly is possible. You even think the impossible is possible. That you can take down Arasaka. That you can succeed where Johnny failed. And that you can survive. You fight to live through your entire journey. It's that perseverance that I love. Songbird shares a lot of these same attributes. She's also fighting to survive, just like V. V's story is very personal to me. I still cry at every ending. Whether it's V dying at their own hand, whether it's V living but choosing their loved ones or riding off into the sunset with the Aldecaldos, or going to the Crystal Palace. In every ending, there's a sadness there, over life passing by no matter what you choose. Because while V's story is special and they do make a name for themselves at the end of the day, they're just still another person in Night City, and we all die. There is no happy ending in Night City. There is only survival, tragedy. Even in the happiest ending, you know that V is choosing to end their life on their own terms, with only a few months to live. It's tragic, even if it's the choice V made. At the end of the day, in every single ending, there is just someone fighting to survive, who no matter what you choose is forever changed. And that's why V is so human. The endings show that no matter what you do, something will be lost. Sometimes it's time. Sometimes it's your friends. Sometimes it's parts of you. And sometimes it's the rocker boy in your head who became your best friend. For me, losing Johnny was the hardest part of the game, for I truly found comfort in him and him and V's dynamic. Johnny was there in V's time of need, even if it wasn't by choice. He was there. And unlike V, he doesn't get a choice in what happens to him. His fate is in your hands. Even if you give him your body, that is still V's choice, and he lets you make that choice. Johnny, for all of his asshole tendencies and selfishness, does care at the end, if you care about him. He wants V to survive for themselves, and he wants you to fight. And maybe the fact that he got some kind of second chance, and if you choose to let V live, Johnny's chance is now gone, is maybe even more tragic than V's, because at least V had a choice. Johnny is at your mercy. And while Johnny begins wanting you to survive so that he can survive, Johnny also finds comfort in V as well. Their connection goes both ways, and I think that's really beautiful, and not something anyone will ever truly be able to experience like they did. Johnny and V's story is unique. They are each other's comfort in the face of death, and that is why I love Johnny. Maybe it's because V, in what may be their final journey of their life, has someone who is there. Someone who can't leave, and someone who can comfort you. Someone who shares your pains and your fears. Someone like you who is also worried about their fate, and who is also worried about dying. Johnny is also just trying to survive, and Johnny, like V, also cannot control the body he's in. If anything, he has less control of his fate than V does. He is more doomed to die, again. He will have lived again, knowing there were choices he shouldn't have made. There are now more regrets he will have, and he lived not being able to fix the mistakes of his past. It's sad, it's tragic. Johnny is more doomed than V, and he finds comfort in V, and will even sacrifice himself for V willingly. I find that so sad, but so comforting. He's seen how you fought to survive. He's seen how much you want to live, and he's willing to die for it. Illness is not really something you can ever truly make someone understand unless they've been in the exact same situation as you, and even then, it'll never be the same. It's very hard to make people understand why you're so worried about death and dying when you're so young and you look fine. It's very hard to get people to understand the fear that comes with chronic health issues and the toll it takes on your mental health. And with Johnny, he's experiencing that right alongside V. He's scared. He's also scared for V. He experiences every step of this journey of death with V and knows that you're suffering, knows that you're scared. You can't hide from him, no matter how hard you want to. V can pretend that everything is fine, which is what a lot of chronically ill people do. Constantly, you can choose to brush off what is happening to V, to not tell those around you what is happening or how serious it is. I do this all the time. Downplay my own suffering. Downplay my symptoms for the comfort of others. I don't want to make people uncomfortable with the truth or inconvenience them with my health issues. And V being able to portray this aspect of chronic illness was very relatable, even if it wasn't the intent. It's a horrible way to think. And yet I know so many people like me share those same feelings, V included. Is V dying? Yes. Is V's body slowly falling apart because of the engram? Yes. Yet V can brush it off and keep going. It's relatable. It's frustratingly empowering. And it's so human to want to isolate yourself in your own suffering. And while it can look like V is doing this on the outside, V simply cannot suffer alone. This is why Johnny and V's dynamic is one of my favorite stories ever. You're truly not alone. And losing Johnny in the end is heartbreaking. V no longer has this person who has become the source of comfort through their suffering. And I felt the same sentiment in every ending where V and Johnny are no longer together, but especially in the Arasaka ending, where Johnny is ripped from you and you are forever changed. You feel something missing. You see colors differently, less vibrantly because a part of you is gone. And that part was Johnny. And the endings aren't just about V, they're also about Johnny. And no matter what you choose, one of them loses the other. Every ending in 2077 makes me feel different levels of hope and despair. There's no perfect good ending, and there's no perfect bad ending. There's just choices and consequences. There's just trying to survive. And while I've played all the endings, I find the most comfort in the Aldecaldo ending. Because while Johnny's survival is important to me, and Johnny's connection with V was hard to let go of, for me, seeing so much of myself in V, it was important for me that V survived on their own terms. My V was faced with that life and death decision and decided to live the rest of her days with Judy and Pan Am, even knowing death was around the corner. At the end, it was most important that I felt like V had some control, like she was able to make a decision, even if it was short-lived. She didn't have to rely on Reed or Arasaka. It was just V making a decision about her own life. In the end, she was in control. And even though this ending probably means V's life is over, I think there's a peacefulness to it. V got to make a choice, knowing all her options. V got to be in control of how her life ends. No, it's not ideal. No, it's not perfect. And no, it's not what I wish for my V. But I think for a lot of people with chronic health issues and people facing death, this is something a lot of people don't get. I'll never get to make this type of choice, and I'll never get to be this in control of my fate. Maybe that's a morbid way of looking at it. Maybe it's just too personal for me to see it any other way. But for me and my V, this ending leaves me with a somber feeling of hopefulness. And maybe after everything I said about the desperation to survive, it may seem a little hypocritical that I wouldn't choose the ending with Reed that guarantees survival. But if V has no loved ones, except Victor, who is a ride or die, if V doesn't have anyone to celebrate being alive with, and if V can't use cyberware that makes them feel alive, and if V can't even be a shadow of who they once were, is surviving but not living enough? I don't know, it's hard to say what V's future would truly be like in that ending. But it also feels like the biggest sacrifice. As an artist with health issues that affect my hands, I worry about how long I'll be able to paint and draw and create. I worry about how much time I have left. I worry about losing the things I've been fighting so hard for so long to hold on to. And for V, the ending with Reed gives up everything that made their life worth fighting for in the first place. Maybe V could find a new life. Maybe they could find new reasons to live, new friends, a new family. Maybe they could use cyberware one day again. I don't know. All I know is that for my V, for the life she was fighting for, spending the last of it with Judy and Pan Am and the Aldecaldos was the rightest wrong decision I could make. I don't know if we'll ever see V again. I don't really expect to. But I hope whatever happened to my V, she lived the most she could before she died. And at least she got a choice. And this whole video has been about some pretty dark topics. And I want to touch on one more, regarding the ending. Specifically the ending where V can end it all and commit suicide. This ending is probably the most tragic of the endings for V. Whatever your opinions are on suicide, the folks at CDPR did a great job of reminding us of how much suicide affects the people you leave behind. So even though not a lot of people will ever choose or see this ending, the message is still important. People care. The messages you get from Judy and Pan Am and Victor are especially gut-wrenching. You choose to end your life, and in the aftermath of it, you leave behind people who loved you, people who cared about you, and now they are suffering in your absence. The voice acting here is especially top-notch. The actors did an amazing job, and they really conveyed how much hurt is left by those who end their lives. It is the most tragic out of all the endings, and is probably the only ending that can ever really come close to what people experience in real life. No one is ever going to be put in the position to choose a computer chip in their head or choose to get help from the government. These aren't real situations, but suicide is. It's a real thing that real people struggle with, and I do like that they included it. I'll never choose that as my canon, and I'll honestly never choose it again. Once was enough. But like I said, this out of all the endings is the most real one. It's a choice people make every day, unfortunately. And it's a good reminder to how that choice affects others. Sometimes that is a good thing to be reminded of. Maybe it's taboo to say, but I think a lot of people with chronic illness, and I know at least for me, have always wondered, what if? What if my health issues become so bad that I don't want to go on? What if my mental capacity deteriorates so much that I lose myself? What if I choose to end it all before my health issues end me? Yeah, I don't think we're supposed to say these things out loud, but being chronically ill isn't about just putting on a brave face all the time. With it comes a lot of dark thoughts. And the ending where V kills himself and everyone who loved you sends these messages about how much they loved you and how mad they are at what you did and how much your choices hurt them is very powerful. I think there's a relatability that maybe people don't want to talk about. I think there's also a reminder that people care. And if you leave this world by your own hand, the people you leave behind will be forever affected. They'll miss you, they'll be mad, resentful, sad. So many things. Suicide doesn't just affect one person. And the game did a good job conveying that aspect. Like I said, it's a powerful message. And even though this ending is an option, it doesn't change that V's story is still about survival and trying to live and fighting for their life. It doesn't change what a strong person V was to keep going and to persevere. It doesn't change the core messages of the game being about survival. If anything, it emphasizes how hard living can be. And life is hard. Cyberpunk really came into my life at just the right time. I needed this story right now. I needed a story about trying to survive despite everything. A story about perseverance. I needed a story to help remind me how far I've come, despite it all. It's a little ironic and serendipitous that I sit here recording this video about my connection to the story about life and death with a Holter monitor strapped to my chest to monitor my heart activity. Oh, the sweet irony, life is funny. And I know this video was dark, maybe darker than I originally intended it to be. In all honesty, I didn't really expect this to get so personal. But I've been writing the script for a short while, and I really wanted to write about my personal experience with V's story, as I've come to realize just how much it means to me. Death is a complicated topic, and I genuinely hate to be reminded of it. But V's story was surprisingly cathartic and comforting in ways I didn't expect. Cyberpunk really surprised me, and this is just my interpretation of the story. This is also just my experience being disabled and chronically ill. I don't speak for everyone, and I know that other people are going to interpret the story differently, and that's totally okay. And don't worry about me, by the way, I'm fine. These are all feelings I've experienced one time or another in my life over the course of 20 years of being disabled and chronically ill. But I'm okay, and life is good. So just because I spoke about some things that are kind of dark here, I am okay. I just wanted to share the power of stories and how personal they can be. So thank you to Cyberpunk 2077, to all the amazing devs over at CD Projekt Red, and to Mike Pondsmith and the people over at R. Telsorian for sharing this story and world with me and everyone else. Thank you for introducing me to this world that is so bleak and dark, but hopeful and inspiring at the same time. Thank you for letting me find comfort in V's story as someone suffering with chronic illness, even if that wasn't the intent. I love this game, and I'm so thankful I played it. I had written off for so long, and that was so stupid. I will never forget V and their story, and I genuinely cannot wait to see what Orion brings. And if you like analytical content and want some that are probably better done than mine, for this video, today's creator spotlight is shaped by stories. She does some really good analytical perspectives on games and has a lot of videos about Cyberpunk. I have really enjoyed every single one of her videos, and she's far more eloquent than I am. So go check out her channel and give her a follow. Anyways, thank you for listening to all of this. This was a weird video to make, and I'm a little nervous about releasing it, so please be kind in the comments, but let me know your thoughts. Do you relate to Johnny like this? Do you relate to V? Do you relate to V in other ways? Let me know all your thoughts below, and thank you for watching.